Okay, guys, in today's edit, you guys have been asking me about the shot with Holly in the woods. This was just a quick shot after we were done with the review and edited with, of course, one of my Lightroom presets and then some Photoshop actions that I've made for you guys. So we started straight out of the camera on the Z7, slightly underexposed, and we added PPE toning 11, that preset, and then after we were done doing all the skin work and adding one more toning preset, sharpening and everything, this is where we ended up after Photoshop. So let's go back to the raw image so you guys can see this before we jump into Photoshop. Just shot slightly underexposed. For me, this is the perfect exposure. It was a slightly overcast day, which I like to do, or just shoot right before sunset. Either way is perfect for natural light photographers, which I tend to favor. And for shots like this, the color is important. You want to think ahead of time. Okay, we have red jacket, we have oranges and yellows, and her hair is yellow, and her lips are slightly red, and then of course just the black will fit in anywhere, and it's having a vignette over here. So you wouldn't get the same feel if she had on a pink jacket or a blue jacket. You want to choose colors and choose areas to match your wardrobe as you shoot. Makeup, color of the eyes, everything counts. And this was just a fun shoot. She had like two jackets, and I said, let's use this one. It matches where we're at. So, and then once we put the PPE Toning 11 preset on there, it goes and fixes a lot of the detail. Some of you guys have been asking me to run through each and every little adjustment that I've done in every one of these presets, but guys, this is my workflow. This is how I do every single shoot. I've made over 70 presets for you guys over the last couple years, and I use one of them on every single shot just to have consistency. And I've made so many different but similar fashion presets that I can always find one that I want to use. And the only thing you really have to do is tweak for your exposure. Um, so just to give you some background on how detailed these are and why it would take 2 hours for me to sit through every one of these presets when you can just go download them. The just in the curves alone, just turn the curves off. Okay, and I did a lot of adjustment on this particular preset for the red channel, the green channel, the blue channel, and then after I was done with that, I did all these different adjustments and the color panel, and then I did the different adjustments in the split toning. And this wasn't just custom for this image. This is just for the way I like to shoot. And then of course the calibration, so all of this plays in, and if you just download the presets, you'll have this and 70 others that will work for this style of shooting, instead of me going through 2 hours of how I adjusted for this particular image, and then you find that it didn't fit your image. The one 2 presets down was better for yours because you shot with a different time of day or slightly different wardrobe. So I'm not going to waste a bunch of time going through that. That's where we ended up, and you can download the presets, and I mean the work will be a lot of the way done for you. So let's go into Photoshop, and then we'll fix everything else up with the other presets or actions that I made for you guys. All right, see you there. So just to show you guys what the light looked like in real time, this is some GoPro footage from the top of the camera. 35mm 1.4 Sigma Art, and you guys can see how the light was falling that day. It was slightly overcast, and these were the angles I was using for this particular shot. So you can go to my site, prophotoedits.com, and then go to Photoshop Actions and Lightroom Presets and download everything you need to follow along with me as we edit. Okay guys, so now we're in Photoshop, and the only thing I did really quickly, just not to waste your time, was I removed the hairband from her arm, just because we were just having fun in the woods and neither one of us thought to take it off. This wasn't like a professional shoot or anything. So I just did that with the patch tool real quick. I'm not going to make you wait through that. So duplicate your background now that we've got our preset on there. And the first thing that I do on images like this is I stick with the patch tool for a minute, and I want to zoom in here and get rid of smile lines. It's pretty easy to do. And you guys can do that to taste in areas like this, any blemishes or just flaky things, moles. If you don't want those there, you can take them away. Stray hair. Just trace it and get rid of it. And right now I'm using the spot healing brush tool. I don't go too crazy. I don't go too crazy on that just because I like I said, people to end up looking like people. And for the most part, that's all that I'm going to remove here. I may go into this area and drag that out just a touch. Okay. So what we'll do now is we'll go to my frequency separation, run it, and then just find the eyes. The eyes are going to be the most important part. So with the radius of 10, we can still see the eyes relatively well. I'm going to move it up to about 12. I think 12 works better for this. You just want to be able to see the eyes plain, just a little bit blurry. Don't make it to where it looks like a water painting. And then go up and choose your lasso tool, and since we started with 12 as the radius, we're going to use 12 picks as the feather. Always match those together. Go to the lower frequency layer here, and again with your lasso tool, we'll start with the forehead area. Circle everything you need. Go down to blur, Gaussian blur, and I usually do 5, and then if I need more, I'll do it again. I don't get too crazy. With this because there's other methods that we're going to use here in a second to make sure that we keep the skin intact and looking, instead of like a veneer, just we want to keep it looking like skin. And this will also help with some of the gradient issues that we're having from lighter to darker on the skin, and it'll smooth it out a bit. This area is generally already smooth just because it was going out of focus. Again, this was with the Sigma Art 35 1.4 on the Nikon Z7, and the Sigma Art is an incredibly sharp lens. I really don't like their 85 as much. I think it does weird things to the skin versus the Nikon 85 1.4G, but that's just my opinion. I've actually sold my 1.4G when the Art came out because I love the 35 so much, and I bought the 85, and then I returned it after like 3 shoots and bought another 85 1.4G. It's really nice on the skin. Okay, so that's pretty much all we need to do with the frequency separation here. That looks fine. Alright, so now we're going to go to skin perfection, and this is going to help us remove any of the highlights, any of the shadows. And now this helper layer is going to guide you and show you all the light gradients and the dark gradients. I don't want to call them flaws. They're not flaws, but it's going to help you really dig in and see how to fix what you're going to do. So 70% on the opacity, 1% flow. Helps if you have a pen, a tablet, but I use the mouse occasionally when I'm just in a rush, and it works fine. You just have to remember not to be too heavy-handed, and X on your keyboard will change the foreground and background color from your pen tool, or your brush tool, sorry. And I'm going to go with white, because white is going to lighten the darker gradients here. I'm just going to paint over them and smooth it out. Take your time with this. I usually spend, 5 or 10 minutes on this part so I can, get rid of any blotchy areas. Under the eyes is where you really need to hit with this a lot of times. Now, it's important that you don't kill all the shadows, like on the sides of the nose. Let those gradually change from light to dark, but don't just flatten it out so much that you can't see any of the shadows. That will make the skin look really flat. I know you can burn it back in later, but that just looks tacky. So, I mean, the light's falling on those areas for a reason, and it looks good. You just don't want it to be so, so much of a gradient from light to dark. You want it to be easy on the eyes and look smooth, and this is how you do it. So I'll speed this up 2,000 times for you guys because it took me about 5 minutes to get this done. I'm just drawing over the darker areas around the bottom of the lips and the eyes and the forehead and stuff like that, just to smooth it all out. Okay, so now you can see what we've done here. You can take your helper layer on and off, and it'll show you where we've gotten rid of the darker areas and fixed the gradients. You can spend as much time on this as you want and go overboard if you need to. This is just the second step here. So what we want to do now is just keep your helper layer off. We don't need that anymore. And we're going to work our way down to dodging method 2. And as soon as you click on the mask layer, it's going to automatically select your dodge tool, and it's going to set up the exact amount of values that we need here. The shadows and the exposure is going to it's going to be perfect for the section I've set up. You won't have to mess with any of that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to draw some highlights again. 1, 2, 3. Just follow the light that's coming down on the nose. So start big, a little smaller with your brush. I'm using my bracket tools to start with a big swipe, bring in just a touch, another smaller swipe, and then a third swipe. Hit on top of the eyelids, a little bit on top of the eyebrow, and then again, 1 swipe, 2 swipes. What I like to do is, you can see how my preset already popped her lips out a bit and her eyes, but I generally highlight them a bit more, and the chin, of course. 1, 2, 3. Down the chest, just a little bit on the hand, anywhere this lit up. You can even hit the jacket a little bit if you really want to, and then down here on the chin. So there you have it. One more time on the nose, smaller. So you can do this as much as you feel is needed for your image. Again, like if I was to hit Command J and duplicate that, it'll get brighter and brighter. And this is just do it again, so you can see that you can get a little bit crazy with it if you want to. I don't go overboard on this because now it's starting to look like it's super Photoshop, and that's just not the look that I want. If you like that look, go ahead and duplicate your layer, and it'll give you more. I'm going to take that down. I'm going to leave the second duplicated layer up and pull the opacity down on it just a touch. And now let's go to the eyes. We're going to make the eyes sharper with my eye sharper action. Run that, and the instructions will pop up. Opacity to 75%, the flow to 100%. So click on your black layer, grab your brush tool. We're going to go to 75%, and flow to 100, just like it said. And make sure you have the white color selected, and choose the black mask layer right here. Okay. Now what we're going to do is just draw on the eyes, one pass, pupils, the whites of the eyes, and the eyelashes on the top and the bottom. And I don't know how much YouTube is compressing this, but that really does make the eyes pop a lot. And you have to just adjust the opacity when you're done to taste. You can turn it to 100 and get alien eyes if you want, but it depends on how much light is actually going into the eyes. Holly has, you know, very big, pretty eyes, and they reflect light, so I don't have to touch them too much. Now I'll go back up to dodging method 2, as we do always. And all you have to do is click on the black layer mask, and then we'll zoom in, and it's automatically going to choose the right tool for you. And just with this, we're going to draw some color, or highlights, I'm sorry, on the irises, and follow where the highlights already are. Follow where the catch light is. The catch light always comes in one side, since the eye is round, and out the other. So if it's coming in here, it'll be leaving right here. And don't go crazy with this either, because things tend to look really cool when you're editing them, and then you go back and look and say, my goodness, it's way too much. See, just a bit. And that's going to help the eyes pop. And like I said, if you feel like you need to do more, just duplicate the layer, and it'll put even more light in there. I don't really like that look, so I'll pull that down a bit. Actually, I'm going to take that off because I did enough myself. So now we're going to go to eyeshadows. Action. Run that. 25% opacity, 100% flow with your white brush. And this helps create more contrast here. And you're just going to take your brush tool and draw one time underneath the eye. Sometimes twice if you need to. And what that does, it's hard to tell probably on YouTube, but it adds contrast underneath the eye, so it gives you, you know, white to black is what you're looking for in contrast. Any color, light to dark, will make things appear to pop more. And you want to focus more of your energy on the eyes and portraits. So that's where we're at now. What I want to do next is go to dodge and burn. Opacity to 8%, flow to 100. Still with our brush tool, and then we're going to choose black to burn. We did our dodging with the dodging method 2 action, and I'm just going to draw around edges of the nose, pop the cheekbones a little bit where the makeup is. I always hit the jawline underneath the lip a bit, sometimes the nostrils. I don't really burn too much around the you know, the crown of the head where the hair meets the forehead. Sometimes in between the breast, you know, things under the jacket where the jacket stops. I don't go too crazy with this because, sorry, this is a workflow from A to Z, and if you go too much in one area, when you start to sharpen and things like that, it really accentuates these, and you'll find out that you've done too much, and you have to go back and start pulling things down. Okay. So this is going to be pretty easy. We're going to do one more dodging method right here. Dodging method 2. And we're going to do this one for the hair highlights. I'm just going to draw where the highlights are in the hair. There's not a ton going on right here, but I just want to pop those a bit. And as you pop the highlights, the darker areas will, appear to be darker just because of the contrast your eye sees. So just a bit there. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run the contrast pop. Now that gives us a lot more contrast that we're needing now. And what I'm going to do now is, if you want more of a softer faded tone, I'm going to run one of my actions, the one that I actually used for toning this image the second time, because as you know, I tone once with my Lightroom presets, and then a lot of times just to give something a bit more character, I run one of my toning. So I forgot to include the part of the video where I ran my staged sharpening action. Just go ahead and run that, and it'll sharpen your action on 4 different frequencies. So your eyes will be the sharpest, and then it'll gradually get less sharp as you go away from the brightest part of the image. All right, so let's finish this off by toning it one more time. And we can go down to my shadow toning action. I run that, and what it's going to do is it's going to make a map of the shadows. It's going to give you some instructions, but I'm going to walk you through it. It's going to make a map of all the shadows and put them on 2 different layers. And then you just turn all of these off. These are all your different colors that you can choose from that are going to be saturated in the shadows. So blue, green, yellowish, orangish, down to purple. And you can just pick which one you like for whatever image that you like. So in this one, I kind of like the blue. Now if you double click on the blue, it'll bring up your color picker, and you can bring the blue way up. You can bring the blue down to the black, and the closer you get to black, the less you're going to see it because it's going into the shadows. So just to give it more of a faded, dreamy look, let's go somewhere around here. And then you can go up and adjust the opacity of just this layer if you want. 14 is really where I keep it. You can go deeper and deeper depending on how much shadow you want. Let's say 15 is good. Okay, now go to complete image toning and run that action. This is going to do a similar thing, but it's going to tone the complete image, and it's going to be a different blending mode for these. So you can tone the highlights and the shadows different. So a yellow kind of makes this image pop, but I think what I did was I gave it a green tone, and then I brought this down from opacity 6 to a 3. And it's just to make it easy for you guys. And I edit so many portraits, and sometimes you have to turn in 15 images, and you don't want to have to build these every single time and wonder how you're going to do it and keep your images consistent for people. That's what people really want. If you're going to deliver a package of images to somebody, they need to be consistent. So we ran the shadow toning and the complete image toning, and from that point on, if you want to adjust, just pull up a curves and maybe do an S curve. I'll just bring this top part over to the left a little bit and pop the highlights just a bit more, and can bring the shadows down just a bit, and then the blacks all the way at the bottom, pull them up just a touch. I mean, just barely, like a percentage. And if you get stuck doing that and you can't figure out what you want to do with that, run another curves. So you have this on a separate layer, and you can adjust the opacity and pull the blacks up a bit more than you actually would like. And then you can fine tune it with the opacity here and pull it down until you figure out where you want it to give it that dreamy look. So there you have it. We started right here, and that was after the Lightroom preset to give us the warm colors, and then we finished up with my action set right here. So I hope this helps you guys. I mean, this usually takes about 15 minutes if you know what you're going for, and then you have really incredible looking images. I appreciate you guys for your business, and I'll have another edit for you next week.